You know, native people's lives are far more entwined with nature than our own. As they search for their daily needs, they have to be acutely aware of all the uses of the trees and plants that surround them. But if there's one tree that stands out alone in nature for its usefulness, it has to be this one, the birch tree. There's almost no end to the uses this tree's been put to, from making teacups and cooking pots to canoes. It's even home to a fungus you can use to sharpen your knife. And now in springtime, the birch gives a nourishing, sugary sap that can be used to make one of the best cups of woodsman's tea. So today, I'm going to show you how. What we need to do is to make a small incision into the bark with a knife. There already, look, you see the sap starting to flow down the knife. If I just catch that. Wow, brilliant. Slightly sugary, safe to drink. It's lovely. I'll just put a wooden stick in here now. That'll encourage the sap to run down into a container we can place below it. Now that won't harm the tree, and we'll be able to come back and use the sap to make tea later on. Well, wherever you find birch trees, you're also going to find fungi. And in most of the British Isles, it's going to be this one. This is the birch bracket. You can't eat it, but it has got a lot of uses. If I cut it through, you can see that it has a very clean white flesh, and it's very sort of rubbery, almost leathery feel to it. Now the common English name for this fungus is the razor strop fungus, and the reason for that is that the flesh used to be dried and stuck onto boards like this and used to sharpen razors, the old cutthroat razor, or I use it to sharpen my knife. It puts just a nice finish on the edge. And I've got a piece of paper. Wasn't a good script anyway, but I'm going to be needing my knife because I want to show you some bark. Come with me. This is just perfect. Look, birch bark peeling off of a fallen dead branch. The bark is full of oil and often lives much longer than the tree itself, which will rot within inside it. And it's leathery, very flexible. So what I'm going to do is clean it up and make it into a cup. What I've also done is cut a small stick and split the end of it like an old-fashioned clothes peg. But now comes the really tricky bit. What I've got to do is fold this bark into a cone shape. Now I take that stick and I just put that down there for a handle. There you go, a perfect cup for a woodsman to drink his tea from. But it's been about 3 hours since we tapped the tree. Should have some sap by now. Oh yeah, look at that, brilliant. You know, this sap is almost like the life of the season, and it's become a bit of a ritual for me to drink this every year. It's great. But I'm going to save the rest and make some tea with it. In a few hours, this will seal itself over and the flow of the sap will stop. To make a good woodsman's tea, I heat the birch sap. Then taking a handful of pine needles, which are packed full of vitamin C and a really sweet flavour, I cut them up and then steep them in that hot sap. Then strain the tea through some sedge leaves. You can't beat pine needle tea made with birch sap. Really good. And finally, one last homegrown use for birch trees. In the Middle Ages, fishermen in Northumberland used to take strips of birch bark, stuff them in the end of a cleft stick and set them ablaze, and with these attract fish to their spears at night. You know, some people say that birch trees are weeds, but I don't believe this. They truly are the woodsman's friend.
Yeah.
This is Horsey Island, surrounded by 1,000 hectares of salt marsh. Okay, it might not look much, but some would say it's the UK equivalent of the rainforest. It's endangered and teeming with wildlife. I'm yet to be convinced. In fact, for the rare avocet, the vesves of East Anglia are a vital habitat. It's a landscape also enjoyed by the black-headed gull, chicks safely hidden. Food is plentiful, incredible numbers of invertebrates creating a rich protein soup.
These are the meadows of the sea, and this wave energy which you can see here is chipping away at this fragile egg. 1,000 chipping hammers the whole time, and today's not a particularly rough day. But you've got to bear in mind that as that mud is washed away, and on a good storm this whole salt marsh could shoot back a metre. But that mud is then recycled back into the creeks, and it then goes back into the salt marsh itself. So although it washes away, it has a habit and a way and a natural process of maintaining itself. So you have a loss here and a gain there, and all the time rising out of the sea as sea level rises. It's a self-sustaining system.
Yet it's the changing nature of salt marshes that makes them fascinating. They're one of nature's original recyclers. Mud lost in one place is soon deposited elsewhere, creating another rich plant habitat for species like sea lavender. I suppose the problem with salt marshes is that they don't have a very sexy image. I mean, it's a bit difficult to get people to sit up and take notice of a pile of mud. They could go for Salt Marsh Awareness Day, an information centre, or maybe display boards, but oh no, down here they really do things differently. Allegedly, the locals have been indulging in this bizarre practice for over a century. And you seriously think this will make people realise what fun places salt marshes are?
I think so, yeah. All societies make use of their surroundings, and us marsh people make use of what we've got and have done for generations. It's your mother Earth. So as you go down sliding in it, give it a kiss hello. Give it a try.
This man is asking an awful lot. Okay. And so Mother Earth and I were united.
Eating and drinking are vital to living in the woods. But you know, cooking in the wilds isn't just about survival. If you're roughing it, you're doing it wrong. This hole in the ground is going to be an oven. We call this a hangi or an imu pit. And the way we cook in this is with rocks. We're going to heat these rocks on a fire built over this pit, and when they drop in, and they're good and hot, we put our food on top, put this rush mat over the top of the hole and seal out all of the air with the soil.
Remember, you always need permission before you light a fire.
It's really important when you choose your rocks that the rocks are dry. If the rocks are damp from riverbeds, they're flinty or concrete, they might explode. Even so, even with dry rocks, it's a good idea to back off once you're heating them. While the rocks are heating, I'm going to prepare a rabbit to cook in the pit. what I've got is some large burdock leaves to wrap the rabbit in and keep it clean. And I'm going to stuff it with some hedge garlic leaves. These will just give it a nice subtle flavour. Putting in stones back in the hole now. I've got rid of most of the embers. Nice lining of stones in the bottom of the pit. And now we can put the rabbit in. A few more rocks. Now some of the smaller rocks can actually go on the top. Now we're going to seal the heat in with the rush mat. And we put the soil over the mat to keep it airtight. It keeps the heat trapped in there tight. So that's the oven ready. The pit's closed, it's going to take a few hours to cook. But one of the nice byproducts are these embers. And with those, I can do some home baking. I'm going to bake a loaf called a damper. It's an Australian type of bread, and for that I'm going to need water, flour and milk powder. For our oven, we're going to use another billy can itself. With 3 small stones, I'll put these inside the lid and the lid of the smaller billy can on top of them so that they're raised up. And in here, I've put a layer of flour to stop the dough sticking or burning. And now, the main billy, this time upside down as a lid, and there we have it, a little oven all ready to go. This is where the embers come in useful. I just rake them back a little bit, like this. We can place our ready-made oven straight in amongst them, like that. We leave that for about an hour. We should have a beautiful loaf of bread. Wonderful. There you go. A perfect loaf. You know, there's nothing quite like baking outdoors. And if there were wild berries available, we could put them in here too. Some wild strawberries would go down really, really well. Lovely. Well, it's been a good few hours since I sealed the oven. I reckon the rabbit should be done about now. I've got to be really careful as I uncover this. Already I can feel the warmth from the oven coming through. You can see how a mat enables us to roll the dirt away really very easily. The rocks are still warm, but I can handle them. I just lift them out carefully, and here is our rabbit. Now's the moment of truth to see if our rabbit is cooked properly. And of course, these leaves are edible. That looks quite delicious. Beautifully cooked. Oh, yes. That's great. But before we finish here, we're going to clear it away like a good woodsman. No sign that we're ever here. Yeah. If there's one thing we take for granted in Britain, it's water. But I've been in many places where water can surround you, but not a drop of it be safe to drink. So today we're going to look at some ways of finding safe drinking water. Charcoal is a really good purifier. We'll take some of this with us for later. And here we are, we've come down into a boggy area. It's a bit heathy. There are lots of birch trees, which are also a good indicator that there's water likely to be around. Particularly though, in boggy areas, you find this wonderful plant. This is sphagnum moss. A green beddy jewel, look, springy, like a mattress. Now, this particular plant is really useful. It contains a lot of water.
and it has a sterilizing effect on the water and can make it pure. It's even been found that sometimes you can reach into the peat underneath the moss and it can be very deep. And squeezing out the moisture of this, first it's muddy, then it goes clear. And when it goes clear, you see it clearing there, that can sometimes be sterile water. But for our purposes, this is a real friend, because with this we can make a filter to carry with us to purify other sources of water that we find elsewhere. So we need two ingredients from here. We need the ordinary moss itself, and we need the peat from under the moss. And there are only two other things we need. We need the charcoal we had earlier and a bottle or some sort of container. Okay guys, bottle and charcoal. Brilliant. There's the charcoal. We can mix that with the peat in our filter. But first of all, we need to prepare this bottle. Okay, this is going to be a column filter. In here we're going to put layers of materials we've gathered. So at the bottom we must make some holes, and at the top we need to open it up so we can pour in dirty water. Now we're ready. First thing we do is we take some of the ordinary moss. Pop that in the bottom, push it down really tight. That's great. Now we take the charcoal and the peat, mix the two together. Charcoal and peat go in. Again, push it down tight. Lastly, cap it off with some sphagnum moss. There is our filter, ready to work. Doesn't look like much, but that could save your life. Here we are, time for a test. This could take a minute. There we go, there's our water now. It might not look crystal clear, but it's a lot safer because it's been through our filter. And here's the test. Cheers. Tastes fine.
Yeah. As they search for their daily needs, they have to be acutely aware of all the uses of the trees and plants that surround them. But if there's one tree that stands out alone in nature for its usefulness, it has to be this one, the birch tree. There's almost no end to the uses this tree's been put to, from making teacups and cooking pots to canoes. It's even... Well, wherever you find birch trees, you're also going to find fungi. And in most of the British Isles, it's going to be this one. This is the birch bracket. You can't eat it, but it has got a lot of uses. Home to a fungus you can use to sharpen your knife. And now in springtime, the birch gives a nourishing, sugary sap that can be used to make one of the best cups of woodsman's tea. So today, I'm going to show you how. What we need to do is to make a small incision into the bark with a knife. There already, look, you see the sap starting to flow down the knife. If I just catch that. Wow, brilliant. Slightly sugary, safe to drink. It's lovely. I'll just put a wooden stick in here now. That'll encourage the sap to run down into a container we can place below it. Now that won't harm the tree, and we'll be able to come back and use the sap to make tea later on. You know, native people's lives are far more entwined with nature than our own.